Good morning. Welcome to the program agenda. We are broadcasting live from Lipa City, Batangas. Maraming salamat sa inyong pagdalo and joining us today. Thank you for being Cignal TV subscribers and of course viewers of One News PH on channels 8 and 250. And syempre, maraming salamat to those of you who watch us via Facebook and YouTube. And since we are out of town, we of course appreciate the facilities of PLDT Home Fiber Optic Internet. And so, welcome on this day of May 5, 2023. It's a Friday. So, nako, baka sabihin nyo, thank God it's Friday. Well, thank God we are alive. Thank God we have jobs, we have families, and I do hope that you are looking forward to spending the weekend with your family. Kumbaga, mag-work tayo today, but tomorrow balance off by taking time out and resting. So, let's now go to our daily starter. And here is a very interesting daily starter from one of my favorites. He's a comedian, but of late he has become a motivational and YouTube inspiration, none other than the famous Steve Harvey, the comedian, international event host and comedian Steve Harvey. And Steve Harvey tells us, if you want to kill a really big dream, tell it to a really small mind, okay? That's what Steve Harvey said. If you want to kill a really big dream, tell it to a really small mind. Kumbaga, yung isang kaba ng bigas, hindi mo pwedeng ilagay sa isang kutsara. So, this is a very interesting message from Steve Harvey because we often want to share our ideas, our dreams, our aspirations, or even our plans. And a lot of people, there are a lot of naysayers. And maybe not all of them are bad people. Maybe they are just being practical or speaking from experience. But if Steve Harvey listened to his teacher, listened to his mother, listened to all the people who said that he would never become a comedian, much less an international event host, then we won't have Steve Harvey. Not many of you are aware that when Steve Harvey was a young boy, utal siya. He stuttered, he couldn't speak straight sentences, etc. And when he told his teacher that he wanted to be on TV, he was actually sent home and his parents were told that he was being a difficult child. So thank God Steve Harvey's father was an inspirational father and said, let them hear what they want to hear, but you remind yourself of your big dream every day. When you get out of bed, when you go to bed, when you're working, remind yourself of that big dream. But ladies and gentlemen, big dreams come with a big price, okay? So you're going to have to put in the time, the effort, make the sacrifices, but never believe, okay, in a small mind. So if you want to kill a really big dream, tell it to a really small mind. So yun po. Okay, let's now go to the front page of the Philippine Star today, May 5, 2023. And the headline of the Philippine Star today goes, Philippines, U.S. to increase tempo of sea activities. The Philippines has agreed to an increased tempo of maritime activities like joint patrols with the United States in the South China Sea as Beijing resorts to more assertive actions in the disputed waters, the U.S. Defense Chief revealed Wednesday. In a meeting at the Pentagon, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin III assured President Marcos that the United States will always have the Philippines back, being not just an indispensable friend and ally of the U.S., but also family with a common vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific region. Ayan, kasi dinuro ng dinuro, binuli ng binuli, ayan, tinawag na si Kuya. Okay, so just a little comedy on this weekend. But that is going to be interesting because China has had a reputation and a record of being a bully. Now it's going to be interesting if they will still do the same thing once U.S. warships start patrolling with Philippine Coast Guard patrol boats. Okay, at the top of the front page, UN or United Nations tells the world, prepare for El Nino record temperatures. Okay, the United Nations Office for United Nations Meteorological Organization has warned that El Nino is coming the later part of this year or mid-year, and it will certainly bring in record temperatures. People are already complaining of the heat, the humidity, how hot it's getting, but apparently it's going to get hotter. So please be careful, prepare for it. Alam niyo, the few times I've had the chance to fly last year, I noticed many Filipinos still use dark color for their roofs. And, you know, dark color for the roof means hotter roof, hotter surfaces. A lot of the Filipinos have concrete houses and they don't paint their houses white. Alam nyo, gawin nyo po yun because you need to prepare for the heat because it's really happening. As a chicken man, I have seen some of my chicken die from heat stroke. So, hindi po biro itong summer na ito. Okay, going forward, COMELEC seeks budget for hybrid counting machines to prevent a repeat of machine malfunctions during previous elections. The Commission on Elections is hoping to gain the support of the executive and legislative branches in purchasing a new election system dahil puro raw po recycled at repaired. So they intend to spend a budget of 2024 and 2025 for the next midterm election. Okay, meanwhile, a bit of good news for many sports enthusiasts and martial arts enthusiasts. First Southeast Asian gold for the Philippines. Jenna Kyla Napolis poses with her gold medal after ruling the 52-kilogram category of the Jiu-Jitsu competition of the 32nd Southeast Asian Games in Cambodia yesterday. Okay. Now, para dun sa inyong init na, tuyot na ang mga bakuran, those of you who are really praying to God for a break, well, there is a low-pressure area off Palawan that may develop into a typhoon. According to weather forecasters at the Pag-asa, this low-pressure area is probably going to develop or grow into a typhoon. And when it does, it will bring rain to southern Luzon in particular. Okay. Meanwhile, center photo of the Philippine star, nakalimutan kong banggitin kanina, President Marcos escorted by U.S. Army Colonel David Rowland reviews the troops at the Pentagon in Washington yesterday where Marcos was welcomed by U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin during the full honor ceremony for the visiting leader. Yun po. And meanwhile, some of you may be aware, on May 17, the Manila International Airport, as we read yesterday or announced yesterday, will be closing down the airspace, Philippine airspace, for maintenance. Okay, airlines have started rescheduling flights that will be hit by the 6-hour shutdown of Philippine airspace on May 17, with authorities trying to shorten the period of travel disruption. Okay, so please consult with your travel advisors and airline. Okay. Meanwhile, screen grab from a video circulating on Russian social media, okay, shows the moment a drone, yung may bilog po dyan, encircled, approaches the dome of the Kremlin Senate building in Moscow before exploding in an intense burst of light. Ukraine has denied involvement in the alleged strike. Ayan po, medyo nagkaka-milagro na sa Russia. Meron daw attempted assassination of their president or their of Putin, and now there is a video of a drone attacking the Russian Senate. Ayan, medyo delikado yan. Okay. Meanwhile, we have news, 42% want ROTC to be optional, according to a social weather station survey. More Filipinos prefer an optional Reserve Officers Training Corps program instead of making it mandatory in senior high school. Okay, tapusin na natin yung remaining news. Last two. Photo, Department of Trade and Industry Undersecretary Ruth Castelo and Valenzuela City Mayor Wes Gatchalan inspect vape products at a shop in Valenzuela City yesterday to check compliance with the law regulating vaporized nicotine and non-nicotine products. Ayan po. And last but not the least, DOTR taps another state printing office for driver's license. Okay. The DOTR is eyeing the government-controlled APO production unit as a possible supplier of plastic driver's license cards in response to the shortage they are currently experiencing. Okay, yan na po. So, let's wrap it up. Please go buy your own, buy a physical copy of the Philippine Star, or go online and read the news and get the rest of the stories, because I only get to read the front page. Okay, we will now go to our interview today. And it is our last interview for the week, but it is very important because many of us are living in denial. Okay? Denial na, okay lang, wala namang COVID, hindi naman seryoso, it's not that bad. Well, yesterday, I read for you in the Philippine Stars edition yesterday that UP Baguio and UP Cebu, University of the Philippines, Baguio and Cebu, had stopped their face-to-face classes because of rising cases of COVID. So, and of course, the DOTR has restored face masks in trains, etc. So, medyo may problema. And we will go to our guest now. Gab, please roll out the intro video.
Prospero Popoy de Vera III is the chairperson of the Commission on Higher Education. He is a known political advisor serving former senators like Nene Pimentel. De Vera is also a professor of public administration at the University of the Philippines, where he also previously served as vice president for public affairs.
Chairman, good morning. Welcome again to the program. Oh, naka-mute yata, sir.
Good morning from Cebu, Cito. Good morning to all your televiewers and listeners.
Huwag kang pupunta doon sa lechonan, ha?
Magla-launch kami ng ROTC Games today with Senator Tolentino.
Okay. Anyway, maybe could you please update us on your trip in Cebu before we get into our topic? You're in Cebu, launch ROTC Games. What is that all about?
Senator Tolentino initiated the first ever ROTC Games by putting some funding in the Philippine Sports Commission, the Armed Forces, and CHED. And we are launching the orientation now for the different schools, commandants that are interested. So it's a competition between students who are enrolled in ROTC across 7 sports disciplines. So this will be done all over the country starting, I think, in July.
Okay, kasi during our time when we were in high school, college, when you say ROTC games or drills, it involved about, how to use weapons, scrolling, overcoming obstacles, etc. Sabi mo, 7 sports discipline. So this is actually a sport, not military competition.
These are real sports events, including
which are?
Including volleyball, 3x3 basketball, boxing, all the way to e-games spread across the different schools all over the country. The ones who qualify are those who are enrolled in the ROTC program. And this is an initiative of Senator Tolentino, the PSC, the Armed Forces in CHED to highlight the talents and skills of ROTC cadets all over the country. So the objective is we will do it for the first time this year, and if it works well, this will be an annual activity that will happen every year.
Okay, but how does that fall into the other sports program? And I have to confess, Chairman, I have not been in any university for the longest time. So and high school, kasi during our time, may PRISA, tapos you have the UAAP and CAA, etc. So there are many sports, and ano ba yun, yung pambansang
Palarong pambansa.
Palarong pambansa. Yeah. How does the ROTC games complement or take away from those programs?
Well, different types of schools have different competitions. Now you have the UAAP and the NCAA, of course. For state colleges and universities, you have the SQAA. For private schools, you have the PRISAA. But this is open to all students. So this is an additional sports competition that will focus on ROTC cadets to highlight that ROTC is not just about drills, it's not just about, pinababad sa araw. To show that there are ROTC cadets who are very good in sports and show that ROTC is physical fitness, not only of the body but of the mind. And hopefully we can identify good athletes here that can graduate into higher levels of sports competition once this becomes a full-fledged event. Magkakaroon din at saka ito, both men and women ito, kasi ROTC cadets ito. This is to highlight the different aspects of the ROTC program to develop sound mind and body for young people.
Okay, so it's strictly for ROTC and it is more of an enhancement.
Yes.
And to make it more popular to the student body.
Yeah, we're organizing it so it doesn't fall within the existing competition of other leagues. No? That's why we're positioning it in terms of the dates that it will be held. No? Different regions have their ISQAA. This is for state universities and colleges. So, for example, here in the Visayas, I was told that the ISQAA was going to be in July. So we're scheduling the start of these games in June. So it will complement, it will add another sports competition so that essentially the athletes can compete in more events, train themselves better, and have continuous competition.
At what grade level will this be? Because in our time, it was in first year, second year college. Some people are now saying it should be in grade 7 and 8. But for the current ROTC, ano bang grade level yan, Chairman?
This is in higher ed because ROTC now is one of the options in the NSTP law. So those who have chosen ROTC as their NSTP component are those who will qualify. And you will be surprised, Cito, there are schools where they have a huge ROTC contingent.
Seriously?
Yes, because when we in Manila, look at ROTC, we see very few cadets in some of the schools, but in many of the schools outside of Metro Manila, they have relatively big ROTC programs. That's why I'm going around. I'm also touching base with the ROTC programs, the commandants, to see what will happen if an ROTC law is passed. No, because the first step, if an ROTC law is passed, is to do an inventory of the assets on the ground. What schools have ROTC programs, how many cadets, what facilities do they have. So our idea is we will cluster the schools. It doesn't have to be one separate ROTC program per school. We can cluster schools that are geographically located close to each other, so that the cadets in smaller schools can train in the bigger schools who have better facilities. This will also ensure that we don't strain the resources of the Department of National Defense in terms of commandants, tactical officers that will be needed if ROTC becomes mandatory at the university level.
Well, if that is the case, then why not conduct those training or those training hours in military camps when available? Because there are many places.
That is also an option. It really depends on how the schools are clustered together. In the last Senate hearing, I already presented a GIS model where we map the schools in a region and identified schools that can be clustered together to maximize the use of resources. And if the clustering involves military camps that are close, the facilities of the military camps can be used. But remember, Cito, the new ROTC is not just about military training. It involves training in disaster management. It involves training in how they will survive during calamities. And so we will also be tapping the disaster management facilities of local government units. I don't know if you've gone to the DRRM of Quezon City. They have very good facilities. They even have a portion there where there's an earthquake platform and it simulates what happens during an earthquake.
Yes.
And this can be used by the students if ROTC becomes mandatory.
Okay, now how do you explain the popularity of ROTC? You said that there is a bigger population of students enrolling in ROTC as their track in the new education program compared to the urban areas. What is the attraction in the provinces, and does this result in good outcomes, or baka naman pagkatapos ng track na yan, ma-recruit na naman sila ng mga walang address?
Well, if you look at the surveys actually in the last Okta survey, the general population, 68% of them would like ROTC to come back in higher education. And surprisingly, more than 80% of the young generation, and this is the age group that is in higher ed, actually prefer ROTC. It's more than 80% in that survey. So I think
But why?
well, in many universities, we all pass through ROTC. In my case, I was an ROTC officer in UP. I think a lot of our young people value the discipline, the training that they get, and also the camaraderie when you are in ROTC, because you do something common and similar every week, and therefore you gain a lot of friends when you are in the ROTC program. You don't necessarily get to do that in a classroom setting if you look at the options of the other NSTP programs. So there is an attraction to developing your mind, your body, and becoming disciplined when you are a young student.
Okay. You're now doing that. You're going to do that in Cebu, or are you just meeting in Cebu for this competition that will be in June?
We're doing an orientation program and a launching this afternoon. Orientation this morning for the commandants, the schools, those who will run the program, and this afternoon we will meet with the students. I'm meeting with the ROTC students to officially launch it in the Visayas, and then we go to the other parts of the country in the subsequent weeks.
Yeah, but will this be a one venue event? Or will it be different venues, different dates?
Oh, there's different dates and different venues. I think in the Visayas, we're going to do it in the campus of the Negros Oriental State University. They have a relatively good sports facility. The sports facilities here in Cebu at the Cebu Technological University is being repaired, so we cannot do it in Cebu. The competition will be university-based. It will use the facilities of the universities. And in Luzon, I think we are going to use the facilities of the Tarlac provincial government. We're also looking at the possible venue for Cavite State University. They have a very good sports facility. They just hosted the ISQA several months back. And in Mindanao, we're looking at possibly Cagayan de Oro or Zamboanga. So the teams are still looking. This is a joint project of the Philippine Sports Commission, CHED, and the Armed Forces. So we decide on the venues collectively.
Okay, well, let's go for a quick break, Chairman. And when we come back, let's talk about other serious concerns. Particularly, you're in Cebu. I'm sure you'll be dropping by UP Cebu to check on this problem of COVID, because as they say, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure, or ma-ICU. We'll take a break. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Okay, just so that our viewers are updated, the University of the Philippines campuses in Baguio City, or UPB, and Cebu suspended face-to-face classes this week due to a spike in COVID cases. UP Baguio Chancellor for Academic Affairs Rosemary Gutierrez said 21 COVID cases had been reported at the university as of April 29. So medyo late na rin yung data. Gutierrez advised UP Baguio faculty members to prepare and deliver their asynchronous classes from May 2 to 5, which is today. Baguio is classified as a medium risk for COVID with an average of 1 to 7 new infections daily per 100,000. Okay. And UP Cebu Chancellor Leo Malagar said the transition to online instruction applies to all courses except those requiring access to laboratories or studios and high school program. Okay, they will resume in-person classes in Cebu on May 11. And based on the latest DOH data, there were 601 active coronavirus cases in Central Visayas with only 26 new infections from last week. Okay, joining us, of course, back on the program is Chairman Prospero de Vera III, Chairman of the Commission on Higher Education. So, Chairman, ano ba ang feedback? What's coming in from the field? Because while we don't have a red alert situation, we don't have an emergency like we used to, the people are now beginning to pay attention. Kumbaga, napapansin na hindi na nila dinideny that COVID is here. What's the situation in our colleges, universities, etc.?
Well, Cito, at the height of the COVID, we shifted to flexible learning and instructed the schools to retrofit their facilities so that when the COVID threat, slows down or goes down, they can go back to face-to-face. And the schools are retrofitted already. The necessary facilities are there, the markings are there. And when we started to do face-to-face in medical and allied health sciences, the infection level was less than 1%. It was 3% actually for students and about 4% for faculty. So we have shown in the past that it can be done, even in the worst of times. So the mechanisms are there, the retrofitting are there, and the guidelines we issued during COVID and moving forward for flexible learning allows the universities to make the proper decisions based on conditions on the ground, based on their discussions with local governments, and based on their assessment of their students and faculty. So it should not be a problem moving back and forth, moving online, asynchronously, synchronously, and going back to face-to-face. If our schools, don't fall back into the bad habit of thinking that COVID is not there anymore and resort to how they thought before COVID came in. So there is no more need to retrofit if the retrofitted facilities are maintained. What I am doing when I visit some of the schools is to see if the temperature check, the alcohol stations are still there. Because the danger is, we go back into a very complacent mood and think that it's not there anymore. We start moving these facilities out. We start taking out the directional signs. And then when COVID comes in, we're not ready. So our school should be pandemic resilient, both for man-made and natural calamities. They should be capable to shift faster than they did at the start of COVID. Kasi when COVID started, there was great difficulty in adjustment. But 2 years of learning should be enough to equip our school authorities with the necessary skills and planning to adjust if a pandemic or if COVID reemerges.
Yeah, that's all correct, Chairman. And but there is a concern. I have been speaking with physicians both in public and private health, and the reality is that by and large we have stopped testing unless a person is indicative or shows signs of infection or possible infection. Kumbaga, pag may tama na dun o may suspetsya na, that's when we test. Now, is there a provision or are you planning to speak with the DOH to at least conduct random testing or advise the school infirmary or school clinics, university clinics to if someone is manifesting that they should test, hindi yung papauwiin o bibigyan ng cup syrup?
Yeah. We must remember, Cito, that immunization is just one aspect of addressing the COVID pandemic. The more effective aspect is really to use the retrofitted facilities to its full capacity, meaning we wash our hands, we wear a face mask when it's a crowded area, we retrofit the facilities so that we limit the possibility of infection. The preventive part is actually the more important part than immunization. I think the danger is some people think that immunization is the silver bullet, that you just keep on immunizing people and then you don't have to practice preventive actions anymore. I think that is the danger. We should keep on telling our students, our administrators that the preventive part is the more cost-effective part of addressing the COVID pandemic.
So what do we have? So what do we have in terms of random testing? Because I find it ironic, Chairman, na meron tayong mga random drug test, di ba, sa mga uniform services, may random drug test sa mga drivers, but when you start talking about random testing for potential COVID infection, para walang pera, ganito. And like, hello, walang pera, pag tinamaan 20, sarado kayo.
Yeah, in every school, there is a crisis management committee under the guidelines that should meet regularly to see what is happening at the school level. So in schools where it appears that there is an upsurge, then they can do other preventive acts, monitoring acts, like for example, doing rapid testing. That is what some government facilities are still doing until now. You enter the House of Representatives, you still get a rapid test. You enter Malacanang, you're still required to do a rapid test. So when you enter Malacanang, you still wear a mask going in, and once the rapid test is negative, that's the only time you take out your mask when you attend meetings in Malacanang. So some of the schools or in areas where there is a significant increase in COVID cases, then the schools have to meet and decide on the necessary actions. So aside from strengthening their preventive actions, they can institute rapid testing in their facilities. If the students are going to school, but if they have shifted to flexible learning, then they just have to adjust their learning materials to longer, more strategic synchronous and asynchronous. And once the cases start to go down, then they can ask the students to come back. So it depends on area by area and school by school.
Yeah. So would you support random testing, especially in like, let's say, UP Cebu, for instance, UP Baguio, or areas where there have been a recognized increase in cases? Kasi kung isa, dalawa, nakachamba pa rin tayo.
Yeah, I will sit down with the schools in the areas where there is a significant increase, and then sit down with the Department of Health at the national level. But the schools and the DOH and the LGUs at the local level should already meet. You really don't need national intervention if the relationship between the local governments, the DOH in the region, and the schools is a working relationship. The relationship was very good, fantastic during COVID. I think my worry is we go back and become complacent and say, there's no more threat, let's not meet anymore. That's a very dangerous thing, no?
That is exactly what I am driving at, Chairman, no? Because 9 out of 10 manifest that behavior and that mindset, wala, okay lang, no problem. And even if there are cases, the symptoms are mild, you only have like a trangkaso,
Yeah.
tell that to the people who lost relatives or ended up in the ICU.
Yeah, actually, at the height of COVID, when we were doing immunization, we had one of the highest immunization successes in higher education. We were
Really?
we were targeting 70% nationwide. The students and the faculty in schools were at 80 and 90% already, when the national average has not even reached 70%. We had schools with the 90% immunization for both faculty and students. Why? Because the schools took it seriously. They sat down with the Department of Health, with their local governments, and they did school-based vaccination. That was the key to success. That's why we were able to reopen classes relatively fast, especially in higher ed, because the students were immunized, because they were meeting. I think the danger is they might have said, they don't talk to each other anymore. They don't consult with the situation. And that is what I am asking our school authorities to do. Reactivate your relations with the local governments, with the Department of Health, continue talking and planning what is the best thing to do. Yun naman ang sakit natin, Cito. During calamities, the best in us come out. During pandemic, the best, we become selfless, we care for others, we talk, we find solutions. But when things become normal, we stop talking to each other. And that's a Filipino trait that we should change.
No, I think it's a global trait. Huwag naman natin sabihin Pilipino. Pasensya ka na, Chairman. Ha? Ako ngayon, defender of the Filipino. Magaling tayo, hindi lang tayo nakakapag-usap. But this is what Agenda is doing also. But may I ask also, what about the booster shots? Pasensya ka na, talaga ako, unaware ako. But I know that most of the students got first and second vaccine. I don't know if they were able to get the third and the fourth. And what about the bivalent? Ano ang program ng CHED?
Medyo mababa yung boosters, I have to admit, because when we started reopening classes, we made sure that the students had their basic shots already, the first and second. The booster shots level varies from region to region. No? I think the general sense at that time is that the boosters were more than enough at that point because the cases were rapidly going down. I think this is a government issue, or the government must discuss this, because the availability of boosters will determine whether we will do another round of campus or in school vaccination.
Yeah, but Chairman, I think it is not a question of if, it is a question of when, because as you are, I'm sure, well aware, with vaccines, hindi yan forever. Meron niyang time limit or date of effectivity. And now, most of the physicians we've talked to, infectious disease experts, have said, whether you like it or not, if you want to be safe, you're going to have to be revaccinated, like children are revaccinated, like animals are revaccinated, etc.
No, when I mean supply, Chito, I mean where are the vaccines located? Because, the infection varies from region to region. There are regions where the infection starts to go up and regions where it is lower. We have to first see where the vaccines are located, how fast they can be moved to certain regions before we can activate the schools again. So it's a distribution or a logistics problem. We did that during the height of COVID, the reason why in higher ed the vaccination rates were very high, because it was well coordinated up to the national level. I remember our vaccine czar, Secretary Galvez at that time, we were in constant communication. So wherever we will do vaccination, there's an instruction to move vaccines to that area. So when we do massive vaccination, we could vaccinate as many as 1,000 or 2,000 students in one day. The
Yeah.
vaccines were already there when we planned. No? So we have to look at that again, with the Department of Health. But this can be done, as I said, you do not need national government intervention on the part of CHED. At the region, the schools, the DOH, and the local governments can talk about this already.
Yeah, can you clarify that, Chairman? Kasi, people, like, parang DTI. A lot of people always go to DTI or call DTI because of price control. But if you ask any real expert of hello, wala naman sa aming responsibilidad yung price control eh. May price control council. Now, you were saying that these things are not does not require national agent CHED intervention or leading. But who's really on top of this? Who calls the shot, or calls everyone to a meeting and say, ladies and gentlemen, okay, the vaccine efficacy is about to expire. We need to roll out the next program. Who's on top of that? Is that really a school-to-school matter or LGU matter? Or isn't that the CHED, DOH? Or, sino in charge?
No, at the height of the COVID, Cito, what we learned is that first, of course, the vaccinations happen at the local government level.
Okay.
Okay? So the movement of vaccines assisted by DOH is linked with the local governments. And in many places in the country, in places where there's a very close coordination between the LGU, between the schools, and the Department of Health, the only thing that I did was to visit the vaccination center and see how the vaccination goes. I did not have to give any instructions to individual presidents because they were already there is already coordination at the ground level. The only intervention that we did is that if the vaccines are not enough for the school-based vaccination, then we go to the national, and then Secretary Galvez gives the instructions, the DOH in the region moves the vaccines. But in areas where they work together well, I went throughout the whole country witnessing the vaccination to show that we are serious about it. In about 80% of the places I went to, everything was already set when I got there. I did not have to give any instruction. That is what I mean when I say that the CHED does not have to give instructions to every single university. We at the national level, corrective na lang yung aming decision making because the guidelines are there. We have practiced this already during COVID, and it worked during COVID. So we don't have to change the policies anymore. That's what I'm saying. Now, if there are problem areas, then that is where I can intervene. I can make the necessary calls. I can coordinate. But by and large, if the system at the local government level is working, I just go there to witness the event. That is what happened during COVID.
It's good that we discuss that because many people are not aware that the vaccination plan, program, supply emanates from the DOH. It goes through the DOH. It is facilitated by the local government units in their area, and then they distribute to the different groups such as state universities, college. Kasi medyo nung height of the pandemic, nagkaroon ng parallel activity between government and private sector. So there were extraordinary impressions or unusual impressions. Hindi, dapat private, hindi, dapat CHED, etc. So at least we clarified that.
At the height of COVID, Cito, the vaccination sites were in the schools. Why in the schools? Because they have the facilities for vaccination. They have already been retrofitted, meaning the necessary directions are there. And they had large facilities. They had auditoriums, they had gyms where you can vaccinate a lot of people at the same time. And number three, the most important is the schools have the record of the students. So they just go there, they show their ID, they are checked, and they are vaccinated. Therefore, data can be generated on a week-by-week basis for reporting purposes on how big of percentage have already been vaccinated. But the ones who are doing the vaccination is a combination of the schools and the local governments and DOH. So the DOH people go there, the LGU people go there in the gym, and they're assisted by the schools. The schools that have health programs, it is the students who assist. It is the faculty members who participate in the vaccination. So the vaccines were not purchased by the schools. This came from the government through the DOH and the local government units. It's just that the schools were the venue for the vaccination because it was the most efficient venue for purposes of vaccination and for purposes of reporting. That's why at the height of COVID, we were submitting weekly reports to the national government on the vaccination.
Okay, Chairperson, I think we've covered that very well. So let's just go to the main point of concern. So UP Baguio, UP Cebu, other state universities can do the same. They can basically declare a timeout. They can go on a hybrid. They can do asynchronous classes, as you pointed out. Now, when they return, or in the event of, such concerns, what will be your position regarding face mask?
Well, that is a school-to-school decision also. That depends on the situation in the school. What we require the schools to do is to coordinate with our regional office and report. So at any time, at the level of the commission, we know what is happening on the ground, and if corrective actions need to be done, then we can address it. So it's really a reporting matter. We don't need to authorize, or we don't need to tell the schools what to do. The guidelines are there for them to be flexible. The policy in higher education until now, from COVID until now, is flexible learning is the policy. So we expect the schools to follow the guidelines, work with local governments, and work with the health authorities at the local level.
Ayun. Okay, well, Chairman, thank you very much. You are doing a great job there at the CHED, and thank you for being very accommodating to guests in the program so that we in turn can help the CHED and of course the other educational institutions to disseminate the correct information. Mabuti na yung ignorante at nagtatanong kesa sa nagdudunong-dunungan. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Cito. Good morning to everyone.
Okay, that's Chairman Prospero de Vera III, the Chairman of the Commission on Higher Education. Let us now go to our closing blessing for the week here on agenda, and it comes from the book of Philippians, chapter 1, verses 9 to 10. And this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ. Thank you very much for joining us this week. Thank you for supporting Agenda. Thank you dun sa mga kumakaway at nagsasabing hindi ko sila pinapansin. Eto, kumakaway na po ako. Okay. Thank you. God bless all of you. Please include us in your prayers, our families, and the Team Agenda, and of course, Cignal TV. Please keep it here on One News.